Okay guys, so I've been using the DJI Pocket 2 for maybe about 2 years now. So in that time, of course, I've found some advantages and disadvantages of using the camera. Now I really do like the camera, but you know, with everything, it's never perfect. So I thought it might be useful if I actually tell you my thoughts on the pros and the cons on the DJI Pocket 2. So if you're considering purchasing this camera, then this might be worth considering. Okay, so first of all, let's go through the pros. Now, one of the things I really love about this DJI Pocket 2 is the actual size. As you can see, it's very, very small and it fits very nicely in the hand. So if you want to go out, for example, and do street photography or street filming more specifically, then you can get away of using this little gimbal camera, and nobody's really going to know what you're doing, and they're not really even going to notice you using it because it's so small. Now I've got a video that actually shows you how to use the Pocket 2 and actually do very unobtrusive recording on streets, so feel free to check those videos out. Okay, so what else apart from the size? Now, one of the other really nice things I find particularly useful is the fact that you can do 4K at 60 frames, 50 and 60 frames. Now, I like to do a sort of cinematic style videos with the Pocket 2. So by having the fact I've got the 60 frames and 50 frames, I can then record and then slow that footage down to 24 and 25 frames to make it much smoother. Now, of course, it's a gimbal anyway, so it's already quite smooth, but it just means I can actually create a little bit extra smoothness in the actual shots. Now, another pro on this camera, and I really do enjoy using it for this reason, is it's a very, very good little vlogging camera. And the reason for that, of course, is not just because of its size, but also the fact it has face tracking built into it. So the Sony's ZV-1 of course doesn't have that, although that's also a very good vlogging camera. This is has the face tracking built in, so of course you can move it around and it's going to keep your face in focus and nice and smooth in the background while actually doing your vlogging. Of course, another advantage is the fact it's got microphones built into the camera, and the microphones that's built in are actually pretty good quality. They're not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but they're probably quite good if you're haven't got more professional microphones and also don't have the budget to do so. Now, there are in fact 4 microphones, I do believe, on the Pocket 2 in 2 directions, and you can actually configure it to use the front ones only if you're doing vlogging. In addition to the face tracking, it has a skin smoothing feature. So if you're if you're a vlogger who likes to have your skin smooth, and I'm not admitting to that feature, not that many cameras do have that feature. The Sony ZV-1 does, but the Pocket 2 of course has that built in, so again making an excellent little vlogging camera. What else? Well, another advantage I particularly like is the fact that it can be used as a little remote camera, and for example you can set it down on a tripod anywhere, and then you can use the DJI app to remotely activate the camera, and then you can control the gimbal left and right, all that sort of stuff, and start and stop the recording from a distance with the DJI app. And I find that's pretty cool to do, especially if you're out, for example, filming the streets and you want to kind of film yourself walking around and that sort of stuff. Let's talk about the picture quality. So because it's got a quite small sensor, you can't expect amazing footage out of it, but the quality of the actual 4K I think is pretty good considering. Don't forget, of course, YouTube's going to compress the 4K footage right down if you upload it, so there you go, you're not going to see the full-blown thing on a massive screen. Alright, let's now talk about the cons, some of the things that I'm not so happy about with the Pocket 2. As I said, no camera's perfect. Well, first of all, I find it's actually quite noisy, unfortunately, so it's not particularly good in low light. And I've also found in anything other than ideal sunny conditions, it does seem to introduce some noise into the shadows. Despite the fact that the ISO is as low as possible, there is still going to be some little bit of noise there, and that's probably down to the fact it's a very small sensor. Another thing that's a bit of a con is due to the size of the screen. Of course, the screen is absolutely tiny, so you're not really going to be able to sensibly press the screen with your finger without a little bit of frustration. So for example, if you want to set the focus or the exposure you certainly can't do the focus with this guy because your finger's almost the size of the screen. You can just about maybe cope with the exposure, but it's a little bit of a frustrating experience, I find. You have to be able to use the DJI app paired with the Pocket 2 to get any sort of sensible and usable and more advanced features out of the camera. And going on to that, of course, not just the focus and exposure, but if you want to be able to change a lot of the settings on the Pocket 2, you're going to have to use the DJI app. So, you know, again, but that app, because the screen is so small, the DJI app is going to give you on your phone, you know, a much more reasonable screen to work with. And that goes on to one of my points, is that the camera really is designed to be used alongside a mobile. So I've got myself a little clip. Here, so I use this pretty much all the time. So it's a case of slotting the DJI into the holder here, and then once I've done that, I can slide in the mobile phone and get that all paired up more nicely. But of course, by doing that, it's going to increase the actual size of the camera because you've got the mobile phone as well. So it suddenly doesn't become the little tiny camera that it was before. It's now obviously the actual size is a lot larger. One of the other disadvantages of the Pocket 2 is the fact it doesn't have a headphone socket built into it. So if you want to monitor the actual sound that you've recorded, you'll just have to rely on the actual speakers built in to the camera. So of course, if you're out on the street or outside, it's going to be quite difficult to actually hear anything unless you actually put the camera quite close to your ear. And another con I find is a little bit of a shame is it doesn't have a built-in microphone socket either. So you do actually get one on the Do It or handle if you actually have the combo for that, the Creator combo, or you buy it separately. You can click the handle onto the bottom of the Pocket 2 and then you get a little microphone socket included in the handle. Now it's a bit of a shame it's not actually included on the base unit, and suddenly you've got a much larger Pocket 2 because the Do It All handle almost adds another 50% of the actual size onto the Pocket 2. Another con is that the actual Pocket 2 doesn't have the Wi-Fi built into the main unit. You had to again attach it with the Do It All handle to be able to get to Wi-Fi to be able to pair it to your phone. So in order to actually pair it to the phone, if you're not going to use Wi-Fi, you need to slide off the little joystick to get access to the terminal there, and then you could take the little adapter, and I've got the iPhone one here, but you also get one for Android. You slide it on to where the actual socket is, so you get the little thing sticking out, and then of course you can slide it onto the connector on your phone, and then you're pretty much good to go and you can start to actually pair it via the socket, but of course it's not quite as convenient as having a Wi-Fi connection. Okay guys, so that brings me to the conclusion on this little video on the pros and the cons of my thoughts on the DJI Pocket 2. Okay, so I hope you find this useful if you've been considering purchasing this camera. Just one more thing before I go. If you find this video useful, I'd appreciate if you could do a like and a comment. And also, if you can, bring yourself to subscribe to the channel. That would be absolutely fantastic, because the more people that subscribe, the more, of course, I'm encouraged to do more videos of this type, helping everybody out. Okay, take care and see you soon.